Welcome to Easy to Read Deep Thoughts, logistics with my special guest, KJ. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna butcher your Carlo. I hear your first name all the time, but I always call you KJ.
Yeah, the Carlo Chiatola. Sometimes, even in my military days, it was much easier just to call me KJ, my initials, Carlo John. So, yeah.
Awesome. And I thought about doing KJ as I was writing this out, but whatever. I figured branding wise, I should use your full name where it'd be beneficial to do so. Oh my gosh. Okay. So structure actually, yeah. Let me do a quick introduction. Then we're going to describe the structure of the show, and then we are going to dive right in. My name is Jonathan Geyer. My first noteworthy note: I helped implement a health information exchange for the state of Minnesota. And in that opportunity, I was able to drink a cup of coffee with 30 some odd thousand veterans. It's a big deal. It changed my perspective. Uh, how I think today was dramatically impacted by all these veteran conversations. Second noteworthy note: I coach a boxing class here locally, and that has turned into a real big deal. We are coming up on 700,000 views. There's people from all around the world that are watching our boxing class or watching me in front of the camera teaching people how to do something scary, which is awesome. Okay, KJ, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so KJ, full name is Carlo John Chiatola, hence my initials
Awesome.
KJ. I'm the president and CEO of Lie Was Thinking. We're a hub zone and service disabled veteran owned small business in Schenectady, New York. So that's kind of just outside Albany, if you're familiar with New York at all. We work closely with government commercial clients, developing solutions, anything from logistics, engineering, operational strategies, trying to enhance, efficiencies and readiness. We were the prime contractor for the city of New York Office of Chief Medical Examiner during COVID-19. We ended up
Oh my gosh.
providing logistical services to them during that whole pandemic, where we helped manage over 17,000 decedents. Wasn't certainly the type of
Logistical nightmare.
logistics. Yeah, every day just seemed to get worse. Certainly wasn't the type of logistics I ever thought I'd be in, but clearly a necessary service. And then before stepping in the business world, I served 24 years in the Army,
Awesome.
from active duty to the New York Army National Guard, doing everything from large scale operations to emergency response efforts, large scale logistical deployments, as well as national security initiatives. So within all that, I've had a lot of logistical background, doing different things that kind of all relates back to logistics. So, I look forward to our conversation today.
Oh my God, it's going to be awesome. We should point out you and I are members of the Government Contracting Academy, and my business partner Randall Wimmer. You and I have been meeting every Wednesday for years now, but this is the first time that we've actually I believe it's the first time that we are you and I personally are going to deep dive into this is going to be interesting. I know you, but there's some deep level thoughts I don't know. So yeah, super cool. I'm pumped for this. uh Structure of the show. So we are going to go through this newsletter that I published Wednesday, and we are going to read it a paragraph at a time. My ask to KJ is to interrupt me. I wrote this article independent of his thoughts. He gave me the topic. So he said logistics, and then I wrote this article based on my knowledge, my current state understanding of logistics. When he said logistics, this article is what popped into my mind, right? And that's deliberate, that's on purpose, because what popped into my mind might be way off. It might be wrong. It is what I understand. And then it's a setup. It's a setup for KJ to add to my thoughts, to correct my thoughts, to guide my thoughts. Why? Because that's good conversation. That's a real conversation. It's happening here on camera in front of everybody because it's entertaining. Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's dive on into it. Logistics. Okay, for the first time ever in gosh, I think we're coming up on like 40 episodes now. For the first time, I did this structure where I wrote down my first three thoughts because I actually have some I'll describe it a little bit more here in a moment, but I have some logistics experience, and it's mostly painful. Like I have some logistics scars. That's a better way to say it. Okay, first thought. I wonder what is more significant, the material or the logistics of working with that material. Oh my gosh, I wonder if I can retell what was going through my mind as I wrote that. Well, let me finish the paragraph and maybe it'll come to me. Example: world changing, humanity altering. This is the greatest thing ever discovered. Type of rock ore that we can't get to or process. Oh my gosh, and actually, okay, it was how am I going to start this article? That's what was going on here, and that's why it is my first thought. So in terms of logistics, it's I pictured like movement, like so you have something, you have like the noun, and then you have the verb of that's a different
It's kind of like I kind of look at it too, like kind of what your thoughts are with that. It's like the chicken and the egg situation,
Ooh, nice.
which is first, and obviously they're related. But I think too, with, logistics, it'll determine basically the feasibility of what that is. If we kind of, if you think in the mindset of, oil, basically it was, useless until we could refine it, move it, figure out, drill it. And then, came the supply chain of how to actually, use the oil. So they're all kind of interrelated,
Right. And that's that was the head scratcher there. Saying if you I'm just going to throw it out there. If you had to list one as more significant, what would you list? The logistics or like the cheap? I'm not even sure how to say it. Then this is the noun and the verb part. Like obviously they're codependent, but
yeah, they are. You know what I mean? Like, does what we're going after, the asset, if we know about it, is it, does the human determination, does that drive being able to implement it? You know what I mean?
Actually, maybe you already answered that oil metaphor. That's a good one. That's replaying in my mind now as we're talking, because oil was useless until we found a way to process it.
Yeah, I think too, especially with, I mean, we're all using AI, and there's so many different, that whole thing keeps jumping, it keeps moving, that the scale of, what is actually being discovered. And now with AI, how much faster will we find maybe other things on the planet that we can now scale and utilize? I don't know, it's going to be a fun thing to watch. That's for sure.
Oh my gosh, I think you just provided a second metaphorical data point to this first thought, right? With AI, the finding of the ore, the obtaining of the material will become secondary to the process. And just like your oil example, but that should increase perpetually because the finding of such or the obtaining of such is not sure how to say it, but I picture the logistics of it increasing over this noun or however. I am struggling to come up with a good logical, easy to.
Yeah. Also, I look at with
that.
With the AI piece to it too. I think too, it's like, are we going to discover something new that will change how we operate, how we live? It may change, how we do logistics.
Guaranteed, right?
I think it's just, it's fun to watch and trying to stay abreast of it, because they're changing daily with it. They really are.
Oh my gosh, yeah, per second. Okay, this second thought, speaking of relatable, second thought, the Ever Given becoming stuck in the Suez Canal in 2021 and impacting the entire world. The logistics of logistics is hard to think about. And oh my God, I was thinking about that when it got stuck, because that's like a clogged artery. Oh, well, actually, functionally, yeah.
So that one choke point that would just affect everything.
The worst.
You know what I mean? Like, and so how do we get around that? Obviously redundancy or different routes or the way to think about that. But there's always like, obviously the cost associated with doing that. You need to as a logistician, always think about, I made a plan, but no plan survives first contact, as we say in the Army, from the enemy hitting it. So how do you adjust from that? And have you made plans, a redundant plan, knowing that, hey, my initial plan may not just work at all. So then what? But there's a cost with doing that, and I think, even from the military side, DoD as well as on the civilian side, you only have so much money and time to actually execute certain things. So, it's a tough piece to kind of get your head around, how much redundancy do you put into your plan and the cost associated with that? Is there enough money to do that? There may not be. So there's always going to be limitations with it. But I think, if you tie that back to on the supply chain piece, kind of what we're talking about with logistics is, the whole, you talked about Six Sigma and,
Yes,
you start thinking about all that. And really what you're trying to drive with that is the just-in-time piece, make it lean, make it tight. So you're saving money.
Works great in a stagnant environment in that Petri dish.
Yeah,
real life
exactly.
is not that. Yeah.
Right. And a lot of logistics, that I've been experienced or had experience with, it always seems to be every day is different.
Really?
So, the way I think about these things is I try to get ahead of it. Being, if you want to talk about having different stockpiles or different routes but there's a cost with doing that, and that's not always feasible. And it may not be the most, efficient way of doing things. But it really, I guess, depends on, what you're trying to deal with. If it's a straight manufacturing piece or is it just transportation? There's so many different facets to it.
Oh my gosh. And I'm wondering if this is a rabbit hole to avoid or to dive down. And I'll let you make that call and I'll put it out there. So on the financial piece, and this speaks to government contracting, this speaks to the contract structure. You pointed out that there might not be enough money. And that's a real thing. And getting more money is a major issue. Like that is the foundation of our entire government contracting structure. How do you allocate the dollars and where do you allocate them? Who decides what project gets what dollars, right? And then, that's on the high level and then goes down to your point. Like if something goofy happens, like a ship running aground in the middle of the world's artery, like where do you find the money to make those alternative routes? Or that's super interesting, and I brought this up on previous episodes, but there's like a level of depth. Actually, maybe that is a rabbit hole to avoid. The Congress allocating the dollars, that's on the high level, and then the individual projects needing dollars because something goofy happened is on the low level. And in terms, this really does break my mind. I thought about this as I was writing the article. Like, I'm excited for this conversation because it is hard for me to think about, and I have enough experience to know that this is a hard topic. It's I can feel my heart rate going up a little bit now. Yeah.
It always comes back to, where's the money come from? Who's paying for it? And how do you get your head around that? Well, it's not, there's no great solutions to it. I don't know. Maybe maybe as a nation, we could look at, public and private partnerships where the government covers part as well as the corporation, knowing that, there's always going to be some sort of fluctuation within that supply chain, whatever that is. I mean, we could think about like the Baltimore Bridge collapse, I mean, who planned on that happening? And, and that's a major port on the East Coast for shipping. And, all the things that the second, third order effects of that happening, the changes that have now been made. And I couldn't even imagine all the companies that have suffered because of that, how they have to change, how they do business, and how much money they lost because of that,
Yeah. And then to your point, like how much can you plan for? How much should you plan for? The force majeure or, just stuff happens. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's a tough one, I kind of also think of it too in the thought of like insurance, just like flood insurance. You know, like that was like, if you just look at Florida, like, you know, two back-to-back hurricanes hit
Oh
within a
my God,
few
yeah.
weeks. You know, you think you're good. You know, I'm just, you know, you kind of get into the whole risk and frequency thing, and who'd have thought, you know, you're just trying to get your house back up and put a lot of work into it, and 2 weeks later, bang, you get hit again. You know, it's hard to even determine that, I think. But you know, if you look at where things are going within, actually, we're just talking about, I guess, natural disasters. It's just because of climate change. I think things are changing. Um, so, you know, maybe we need to put a little bit more risk mitigation and thought into our plans on how we're doing things. You know.
I wonder if that will be, you know, I might bounce all over the place here, so feel free to keep me to check me back into it. But like chess, you know, I have confidently, egotistically said that I think three moves out. You know, and I think that's just a general term people talk about. You're able to see three moves out. Well, the reality is you're not seeing three moves out. Like in chess, it's I forget what the numbers are, but three moves out, there's like hundreds of thousands of possible chess piece positions at three
Right.
moves out. So this last 40 years I've spent telling people that I think three moves out, or bragging about being able to see three moves out. I'm not actually seeing three moves out. I'm seeing the three most probable moves out.
Right.
That probability part is a big part. And that's what you just spoke to. What's the probability of two storms coming through back to back? You know, it's there, but it's
Right.
not highly probable. It was possible, you know?
Right. 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 Right.
So then all the this is where logistics breaks my mind. And you know, human psychology, cognitive biases, that's my world. That's where I spend the vast majority of my day dancing in. And there's a cognitive bias towards, well, maybe this is the ego part, but assuming that we've seen all the stuff that there is to see. And it's we
Yeah.
like the comfort of knowing, but you know,
We go through our decision making process, have a great plan, then right out of left field, I didn't see that one
yeah,
coming. Like,
boxing. Yep.
yeah, right. Zig when
Uh,
you should have zagged.
Tyson, everybody's got a plan until they get punched.
Yeah, so I mean, I think with logistics too, it's just you need to have extreme flexibility. But again, there's a cost with doing that. But hey, well, similar to boxing, you know, at the end of the day, you know, if you're in the corner, you need to get out of that corner. You need to move. So we need to kind of think too logistically in the same kind of that same space. And what is that? You know, sitting idle is a course of action, but probably not a good one. So
which goes to lean, and then the oh god, I forgot what the term is. The one piece flow, the where everything on time. You know, those perfectly curated processes. And
right.
I speak to that lower in this article. I I now I consider that a fallacy. I now perceive that when I hear people talk about that, I consider it ego,
Yeah.
because you have two hurricanes, because there's a punch that comes out of left field, you know, a meteorite strike. Like there's a portion that on the highest level of depth, yes, it's predictable. On this lowest level, it's luck of the draw, you know,
Right.
like entropy, right?
Yeah. Perfect.
So when we're talking logistics, you know, and I'm thinking of this in 3D, or actually 4D would be appropriate. And that's the level of depth portion. So logistic, you're planning for the act of the plan. You're planning for the planning, but the plan that this planning produces is not very useful. The planning itself, the input is more useful than the output.
Yeah, you know, and too, like you said, I mean, a lot of this comes back to money, and we've seen
Yeah.
over time that even on things where we say, geez, it could happen, but we're not going to put the investment into fixing it until after something breaks, you know,
Which
and
is a fair
then we're
choice.
trying to chase it and fix it. Even though we kind of knew it was, yeah, maybe it was a possibility, you know what I mean? But generally things aren't addressed until after, you know, things just go awry, and now you're chasing it, trying to fix it, you know, putting a ton more money into it than probably you needed to in the first place, you know.
That what just popped in, I was active listening, but what popped into my mind is you know, I consider humans the greatest constraint, the biggest bottleneck on logistics. And specifically like the human mind, the human psychology, you know, like the logistics on the surface, it's very mechanical, like building an engine. Oh, actually, let's go with that metaphor. You have the race car, and then you have the driver of the race car. If the driver stays up too late, that race car is gonna suck. You know, the
Right.
mechanics of it's different. There's a mush in between this mechanical portion and how yeah. Okay, well, you know, in when I'm implementing new teams, I usually build like a football roster of positions when I'm like standing up a new department. You know, I
Mhm.
will have let's say I'm doing something, I will have somebody that can come in and replace me if I get taken out. Then I also have somebody like a third tier. I have another person that can replace that person if he gets taken out, and so on and so forth. And I usually set that up for all positions that I'm responsible for, because I'm trying to mitigate for the things that I don't know. Like I know that there's goofy stuff that's going to happen that I don't. There's going to be ships stuck in canals. What do we do? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You always need redundancy and everything, I think, especially in the logistical side. You know, you just don't know.
You can't. It's yeah.
You really can't. So, like you say, you kind of the whole idea of, plan for inefficiencies and just think about how things can go awry,
What you know, this I want to highlight you a little bit more here. Oh my gosh, you know, you spoke to the New York during COVID. You want to describe that a little bit more? You know, I remember you saying it, but I don't know a lot about. I'm interested. I'm curious.
Yeah, no, I mean, I had experience down in the city. I was the commander of a small team, National Guard team that provided basically we would look for weapons of mass destruction. So basically a super hazmat team. And the idea of it was to be on Title 32, so you're supporting the governor first. And the idea is to enhance the first responders without taking control of the incident. Obviously, being in the Army from a federal level, but to expand and help basically what they're dealing with. So I had a lot of experience in the city dealing with that post 9/11. Got to know a lot of the agencies down there. So when the COVID piece hit, I previously had some experience training with the Office of Chief Medical Examiner, and the company that they had lined up to support them logistically wasn't able to show up for whatever reason. He knew of me and my business, and kind of made a call, and I'm like, ooh, she's a bio that we don't know much about, and dealing with decedents. That's a tough one. But was able to put a small team together, come down and support them with just a lot of infrastructure, logistical support. So, it was over a 4-month period. Things every day just seemed to get worse and worse and
Oh
worse.
my God, yeah.
And they were just, I hate to say, overflowing with decedents, but yeah, their facilities just couldn't manage it. So we started building disaster portable morgue units that would be outside of their current facility, and down in the South Brooklyn Marine Terminal actually built a long-term storage unit in a much larger facility that those in that business could come retrieve the decedents and go about their way. But that was a much larger endeavor that we took on that really just expanded very quickly. Like I said, every day seemed to be something new. So we did everything from assisting with the procurement of certain items to the distribution of it, from PPE to whatever, to the management of freezers, be it both mobile as well as the large ones you would find on like a overseas shipping container that would be able to go into deep freeze. But a lot of this was, we were kind of making it up as we went in conjunction with, taking basically what OCME wanted to do, and we would help provide input on that. We'd kind of come to a consensus and then execute. And sometimes we had to make adjustments very quickly because what we were doing just didn't seem to be working. So,
And you had to create. You just spoke to that. You had to create some of those plans. They didn't have the football roster. They didn't have plan A, plan B, plan C. Like, a pandemic has been humanity long probability. Like, it's happened a
Yeah.
whole bunch of times, but we didn't have those secondary logistical or
Yeah, the guy we're working for, Frank DiPaolo from OCME, I mean, had a wealth of knowledge and experience, obviously, in that field. But yeah, we still, at times, we're like, we know what we have to do, but how are we going to get there? So for me, too, was able to bring in some key players that retired fire department, FDNY, previous
awesome.
New York City OEM guys that, I knew a lot about the city, but I didn't know all the intricacies and the relationships and kind of how it all played out, even though I worked down there, So getting some key players like Charlie Arnone really assisted me in making that work for us, OCME.
That's yeah, you just spoke to the relationship. That's like a non-discrete variable that totally impacts logistics. That's how do you quantify the value of your experience having those relationships when stuff hits the fan and this stuff had to be, how do you plan for that? How do you plan for your relationships to matter in this super important, super significant kind of situation? Like, how do you
it's
even
tough,
document
right? So it's, well,
to apply money to it?
Yeah, it's, well, like you say, it's we know what we have to do, and I think also expectation management.
Oh, that's a good.
I need this by hour X. In reality, we're just not going to get there. But let's address that now, as opposed to waiting to hour X. Or maybe we just need a different plan to be able to get there. Maybe we don't get to 100%, or maybe we just have to do a whole different plan. And I think, to be a good operator, you also need to be a good logistician. And I think they're hand in hand. Without one, you can't just say I'm a good logistician without being a good operations guy. You just always need forward planning and to be able to be flexible and collaborate with others and come to a consensus on what we're going to get to and when we're going to do that.
One provides context for the other.
Right. Sure.
Oh my God. We are in our last 2 minutes and 30 seconds here. Well, let's touch on one more spot. I think you've already covered the actually, and I'm making this up as I go right now. I want to beat up lean a little bit more because I take some satisfaction in that. And it was super disappointing for me. This was like a transitional period in my understanding of how reality works. That similar to my chess metaphor, like, I think 3 moves ahead. Well, no, I don't. And it's yeah. This lean is like the thinking. Oh my gosh, this metaphor is probably all confusing. Whatever, I'm gonna keep going with it. This thinking 3 moves ahead, it's really just an ego thing. Like, I think 3 moves ahead. I know I have a good idea what's gonna happen. I've planned for things to happen 3 moves out. Well, the reality is reality doesn't actually work like that. It never has worked like that. It's all ego in our mind. It's our self-important kind of perception, or a skew towards that self-importance.
It always looks good on paper, always looks good on paper. But I think there are some things though you can, I guess even, similar to like your Six Sigma training, we've talked about in our course with Randy too, is there are some things we can do to get ahead of, help assist with our planning and our processes on what we use and how would it help us manage going forward. So, and what I'm driving at is ISO certifications. Awesome. They help establish kind of what we do and how we do it.
They do. They help, yeah.
Right. So
the structure.
One that I more recently got was ISO 28002 resilience in supply chain management.
Awesome.
That helps you look at resiliency, preparedness, taking into account fluctuations that they're bound to happen, right? So how do you manage that, and do we have at least something where we can start from, knowing that it's not going to be perfect, right? But it's going to give us at least a path to move forward. To adjust.
The beachhead, the starting point.
Exactly.
Spot to land.
Right.
Oh.
We talk risk management. There's a lot of different things within that helps you trying to think ahead about what the next plan should be. or knowing that I already have risk in this area, I maybe already need to do something now about it.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, I think I heard, I want to say I knew you were getting that, but yeah. Awesome. Oh my gosh, we are at time. I'm going to ask that you close this episode out, and you're going to close it out with one final thought. What would you like our audience to take away on this topic, logistics?
And I think you touched on it too, Jonathan. Within your planning, maybe we need to think about a little bit of knowing that our plan isn't going to be perfect. So kind of don't be arrogant in your plan. Know that you're going to have some adjustments to make in it. So make room in that. Be it that maybe it's time, maybe it's money, maybe it's people. Maybe we need to have a little bit of buffer in there, knowing that we're going to have to adjust.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, that's like a metaphor for life. A little bit of slack.
Yeah, good point. Right.
Awesome. Holy cow, this was a great episode. Super cool conversation, and I appreciate you coming on, KJ. This was awesome. To our audience, I look forward to you guys joining us next week, Wednesday, when I publish our next episode, our next newsletter, and then again on Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be awesome. Thank you.